computer, and I think we're recording. We just started. So hi everyone, hello there. So there is me, Taha, and there is Mr. Michael, and today we're going to demonstrate what a IELTS speaking test should look like. Mr. Michael is an experienced teacher. He teaches in italki and on other platforms. If you're interested in booking a class with him, then you would see his email address and also his website somewhere in this post. All right, so let's just get on with it.
Okay, that's great. Hello, Taha. Thank you very much for coming in for your IELTS exam. Let's get started with some part one questions. So, Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Libya. I was born in 1993, so that makes me 30 years old. But I was born in Egypt and I grew in Libya. So I grew up in Libya.
Fantastic. Yeah, really good. Grew up in Libya. And was that a good place to grow up?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say for sure. I mean, if I had the option, I probably would have chosen a different place. But overall, I can't complain too much. It's home to me, and you know, no matter where you end up being, you will always grow that feeling of sense of belonging. So I definitely belong here, and it's definitely a place that I cherish in my heart.
Okay, fantastic. And where did you usually play as a child?
Oh, that's a really good question. Usually in the garden. Yeah, just in the garden. We have like a big garden up there, so I used to play there with my brother when we were very, very young. And yeah, I suppose that was it. At the garden.
Awesome.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. Perfect. Who did you obviously you played with your brother, but did you play with anybody else?
Um, Occasionally I would go out and play with my neighbors in the streets, but that was something that my father wouldn't necessarily approve of, because he thought that we would just be wasting time, you know, learning bad habits, you know, like what streets basically teach you, nothing good. So he would make sure that we spend more time indoors with our books and doing beneficial activities like learning languages and learning, but you know, different stuff. So we didn't really go out much when we were younger.
Perfect. One final question. What is your hometown like?
Well, my hometown is Tripoli. It's well the biggest city in Libya. Well, I mean, when I say the biggest, I don't mean like it's a metropolitan city of some sort. It happens to be the biggest city in Libya. It's a I would say as good as a Libyan city can be, given the restrictions and limitations of the people here. It's a nice place overall. Well, I'm not quite sure what to say, to be honest. How would I describe my own city? The population is quite big, 2 million people. You might say that's not too many, but when you consider the whole population of Libya to be just 6 million, so like 1/3 of Libyans live in a small, well, in the capital. So that makes it really, really crowded, and it can get really, really hard to find a place to park, especially in the rush hours. That's a nightmare. So yeah, so there's that. Tripoli in a nutshell.
Perfect. Great. Let's move on now to part two. I'm going to share.
Okay.
Oh, I cannot see, but what I'm going to do is in the message, I'm going to send you a link, a picture of the question. So there it is. If you can you see it?
It's loading. Well, it says I have a new message. Well, yeah.
Let me see. So no problem. It should come through.
I should have also talked about the internet when I was describing Tripoli. Internet is horrible.
Yeah, that was. Don't worry. The joys of development, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's still like they see me rolling. Okay, there it is.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, I'm downloading it. Well, there's also that. Just give me a second.
No problem at all. No problem.
Okay, my screen just went black. The struggle is real.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not responding. Oh, lovely. Okay, well, my computer says I'm working on it.
Okay,
Working on
no problem.
downloading a picture. Well, that's
I do love
insane.
that. Yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah.
Yeah, literally, it's working on it. Okay, there it is. So part two, describe a city that you have visited. You should say what city it is, when you went there, why you went there, and explain what you liked or disliked about the city. Well, that's okay. I can do that.
Okay, fantastic. So, like in the exam, I'm going to give you 1 minute to prepare. After
Okay.
your 1 minute preparation time, you will have between 1 and 2 minutes to answer the question. Okay.
Okay, so
So,
that's actually something I really wanted to ask you about. Do I have to stick to this
yes,
bullet point, or can I just speak freely? Because it doesn't really sound natural if I speak in order. Yeah, what city it is, it's not going to sound natural to be honest. And if I'm going to have a real conversation with someone, I wouldn't have bullet points to follow. So do I have
it's
to
a very good point.
absolutely stick by the bullet points, or can I just freely speak about the city?
You could freely speak about it. However, it's very important that you do include all of the information in each bullet point. If
Ah,
you
okay.
maybe miss a part, the examiner has to assume that you don't understand that part of the exam. Even
Oh,
if you
okay.
speak really fluently, you need to include all the information. Best thing to do in the 1 minute preparation time is more just to
Okay.
write a few guiding notes to influence it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think I'm ready. I think I have everything ready. So let's just get on with
Okay.
it. And there we go. So basically, the city that I'm going to talk about is Nanjing, which is a city in China, which used to be the third capital of China, just right before Beijing. It's a city of about 12 million inhabitants, a really, really big city. You can find everything there. It's a mix between modern and ancient lifestyle because you have that sort of modern atmosphere. It's a new city with loads of buildings, lots of skyscrapers, lots of international companies, but it also has the other part where it used to be that capital of China, the third capital of China. So there's also loads of history there, loads of like loads of that cultural aspect. You can still see it there. I went there back in 2018 when I actually moved to China, and I chose that city because I had a friend who lives there and he offered to help me in case I needed any help, which of course I did. So it was really, really useful that he was my neighbor also there. Well, he's also my neighbor here in Tripoli. Chilean, hi. And why I went there is I went there because I was in pursuit of a new life. I wanted to just career shift, like make a career shift and just do something else that I've always wanted to do, which is to become an English teacher outside of Libya, which I did in China. But what I disliked about the city, well, obviously, when you have a population of 12 million people, you can't really avoid being stuck in traffic all the time, can you? So there's that. I didn't really enjoy that much. But other than that, I think it was just a brilliant place. Well, if I have some time, I can also mention another point. The humidity is insane. I mean, it was 100% almost all the year. So it was really, really cold in winter times and absolutely hot. It was scorching hot during the summertime. But then you get used to it and it is what it is. I've absolutely loved it and I would go back there again in a heartbeat.
There we go. Fantastic. Perfectly timed. Really good. Got everything in. That's really good. Well done. Okay.
I try my best.
Let's move on. That was perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely perfect in terms of timing and everything. Really good. Let's move on to part 3 now. So, what are
Okay.
the advantages of living in a city or a big town? What do you think?
The advantage of living in a big town, you should be able to make loads of friends. You're never lonely, are you? Well, unless you're, that kind of person that would still be alone in a big city with lots of people around. I can't blame you. Other advantages of living in a big city is that when you have lots of people, there's lots of services, which means lots of jobs available. So you can sort of easily find a job. Well, not easy because there's lots of competition, but the jobs are there. So if you're good enough, if you work hard on yourself, then you should easily find a job that matches your preferences, matches your exactly what you want. So there's also there. Yeah, I think there are disadvantages of living in a big city with loads of people. Obviously, the crowd, it can just get a bit too much. I mean, if you're a person that would enjoy crowded places, which I assume you're not, then you might struggle a bit in cities where loads and loads of people are stuffed together. Just like in China, for example, where every time I took the metro, yeah, I could barely find a place to breathe, to sit. That was impossible. So people would be rushing in and they would squeeze each other. So that was a bit hard to get used to. But I mean, after a while, you sort of just get used to it and it becomes like a nature. You can't really complain, can you?
Yeah, really good. Great. And do people enjoy a better quality of life in the city or in the countryside?
Well, that depends on what kind of person you are. There are people who are naturally um, accustomed to like that peace and quiet of the countryside. There are people like me who would use that for a day or two, but they would rush back to the city because the hustling and bustling of the city is what gives me going. So I assume that depends completely on what you want and what you want from life. But however, I would assume that the older generation would definitely want more peace and quiet. So I think they would tend to be more content living in the countryside. But the youngsters, the new blood, so to say, they would probably rather live in a public, a populated place, the city, the big city, where the dreams could come true.
Yeah, really good. And what are some of the challenges facing towns and cities?
Challenges that face town and cities. Um,
Hmm.
like, well, can you please elaborate on that question? I'm not sure what you actually mean with that. Challenge that face towns and
Yeah,
cities.
exactly.
What country? Because different
Yeah,
places have different challenges.
certainly. Yeah, that could be one of the things. But generally, I think what this question is highlighting is what are some of the problems that are associated with big urbanizations, places where there are many
Okay.
people, lots of urban environments? What do you think?
Well, obviously the cliche answer that everyone would think of is you can't find a place to park. It's too hard to find a place in the metro. I mean, you would hear this very very often. Well, I'm not a boring student. I don't want to give you that answer. I want to give you something a bit better, which I need some time to think of. A city with loads and loads of people. I mean, some people are socially like to have like what they call social phobia. They have like they're afraid of crowded places. They're afraid of they can't be comfortable when there's so many people around them. They get anxiety attacks, and that used to be me until very very recently. I used to suffer when there's a place where lots of people. I feel like I'm being squeezed in. Sometimes I can't even breathe. Other challenges of cities with loads of people is the electricity problems. I'm not sure you have that problem there in the UK or not, but in Libya here, especially in Tripoli, we have loads of load shedding, loads of electricity power cuts, loads of power cuts, right? So I feel like that could also be a problem in cities with big populations. If the government's not doing a good job keeping the electricity companies well maintained, then you could also face that kind of problems. Also, when you have cities with loads of people living in, the internet can be a bit slow because everyone is on Facebook, everyone's scrolling through YouTube videos and wasting time on the internet. They're not doing much, are they? So that could also make life a bit of a hell, like internet-wise. If you run your business online, if you teach classes online, that could be a struggle. I mean, I assume there are other problems too associated with big cities, but I can't really think of any at the moment.
Yeah, I think they're the best, the obvious ones, aren't they? Yeah, you're very right. And what can be done then to reduce traffic congestion in cities?
Make roads bigger. Maintain them. Roads in Libya are horrible. They haven't been maintained or expanded or worked on since the 80s. And it's something that I've personally complained about millions of times. But the government, I mean, but recently, like starting from last year, I suppose, actually expansion work has been going on in most of Tripolitanian roads. So I feel like that's a good start. So that's definitely something that you can do. Another thing would be to provide more transportation, more public transport, because then people would have an option of not having to drive the car to work every day. That commute is horrible in your car. If there's public transport that is accessible to everyone, that's cheap enough for the public to actually go on, I think that could heavily reduce the traffic problem.
Really good. Awesome. Final question. How important is it to have trees and parks in cities?
Sorry, how often is it what?
So how important is it to have trees and parks in our cities?
Well, I assume it's important. It's one of the biggest sources of oxygen in a big city. So we humans need oxygen, don't we? I feel like it's good to have that. The thing is, I mean, people like who live in big cities aren't necessarily used to being around trees very often, so they don't understand the beauty of seeing green trees and green leaves when you walk to work, for example, or when you go for a walk in the evenings. So not only so not only are trees a big and important source of oxygen, fresh air, they also add a touch of beauty to the streets and the city itself. It would be boring if everything you saw around was just tall grey buildings. A touch of green would definitely make my day anytime.
Fantastic. Well done. So that is the end of the IELTS exam. Well done.
Oh,
Fantastic.
thank you.
How do you
Thank
feel
you.
it went?
I feel it went great. I feel I did okay. I feel like I did pretty well. I mean, I'm not sure. I feel like it was quite okay. I think I did okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you did
So
really well. The key point. Sorry, please, yeah.
yeah, I mean, like if you can have like a small report that I can attach to the video later on, so people would see the feedback that you've given me. Yeah, so they can also
Yeah,
learn from my mistakes if I made any, and you can also highlight the good points, so they can also keep that in, when they're preparing for the artist test, so they can also follow your instructions as well.
yeah, not a problem at all. I'll send you that in a little bit of time. If you send me an email on
Okay,
that thing, I'll send you everything over. I'll send you the exam too.
I
If
absolutely
there's anything
would.
else,
Yeah.
yeah, no problem. If there's
Yeah.
anything
Okay.
that you want any cooperation with in the future, just send me an email. We can organize it. It's no problem.
Cool.
If you want to
I'll,
promote things, we can do it.
okay. I'll just stop recording now because I feel
Yeah,
like
no
we're
problem.
done. Okay. So
Yes,
bye
certainly.
bye everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.